On Wednesday, 21st of February 2018, history was made in Lagos, Nigeria, when original African descendants gathered at Museum Center, kings and princes, scientists and technocrats to rub minds on origins, visions, and aspirations of the black race. In Conference on African Origins, New Scientific Evidence on Origins of Nigerian Peoples. Present, the Ooni of Ife, His Imperial Majesty, Oba Enitan Ogunwusi Ojaja II, the Ataofigala, His Royal Majesty, Dr. Michael Amen Oboni, Jaja of Okpobo, His Royal Majesty, King Dan Desin Douglas Jaja V. Other kings and their kingdoms were well represented by the kingsmen. Welcome to the Conference on African Origins. The Conference on African Origins is the beginning of an extensive public awareness program to enlighten and empower the black African race about its true genetic and cultural history. Professor Kwon Ndung, President, Genetics Society of Nigeria, opened with,
the Human Genome Project is one of the concepts that was conceived in the year 1984 and it officially started in October 1990. It was a large multi-centered international collaborative venture whose aim was to determine the nucleotide sequence of the entire human nuclear genome. The project attracted worldwide attention by the media, and indeed, the mystery of life was unraveled for the very first time through this project. The library of life came out clearly through this project. The periodic table of life, in fact, what some people call the holy grail of human genetics, was accomplished through this project. The project released all the data it produced into the public domain, enabling any researcher worldwide to access it. I've said that earlier. At no cost. The project does not include specific utility studies to relate genetic variation to particular phenotypes. So a political scientist, a historian, or any expert that is interested in advancing academic research in that area could access the information. Now the next thing I'm talking about is the oldest, longest DNA. Now, scientists have sequenced the oldest human DNA ever extracted from a 430,000-year-old sample. The next study I want to highlight is the studies of Marina Silva and her colleagues. And it talks about the Bantu expansion theory, where they use the mitochondrial DNA of haplogroup L2, which originated in Western Africa, but is nowadays spread across the entire continent. I will talk to you shortly about the Out of Africa theory, and it is also based on this study. There were three moments of expansion from a Central African source that are associated to the L2. The first one was the migration at 70 to 50,000 years into Eastern or Southern Africa. The second one was the post-glacial movement. That's during the geographical disintegration into Eastern Africa. And then the third one was the southward Bantu expansion in the last 5,000 years. Then the next thing I'm briefly talking about is the Simon's Genome Diversity Project. This again, it was a study that involved high quality genomes that were removed from 300 individuals from 142 diverse populations. The genomes include at least 5.8 million base pairs. The Serratishkos team study on genetic diversity of African peoples, very, very important. Here, they were able to establish that the African, American, and European researchers, over a 10-year period, using a data of over 4 million genotypes, they provided a clear library of new information on the continent, which is thought to be the source of the oldest settlements of modern humans.
66 million years ago, a meteorite crashed into Earth, killing dinosaurs and most life, quickening the breakup of the supercontinent Pangaea. The new formation of continents with the Atlantic Ocean flowing between Africa and Europe on one side and the Americas on the other resulted in new wind systems that dumped the heaviest rains on the West African sub-region, making it the most fertile area for evolution. With rivers Niger, Benue, Kaduna, Sokoto, and many others emptying their waters ultimately in southern Nigeria, creating the largest continental mangrove and freshwater swamps where man evolved. In a study of 3,945 DNA samples, differentiated with 1,327 genotype markers, 14 probable ancestral clusters were created, show 58 DNA. A close analysis shows that the DNA values fell as you moved away from Yorubaland in southern Nigeria. Over millions of years, various humanoid species had spread from Africa across the world, as different new species set out to colonize the world, replacing previous migrants. From DNA evidence, the modern man evolved around 120,000 years ago as pygmies of southern Nigerian rainforests, the Yam Belt. Surviving by picking wild yams, the hunter-gatherers led human dispersal across Africa and Eurasia through the Ethiopia land bridge. Due to the Indonesian super-eruption around 75,000 years ago that blocked sun rays and killed previous migrants around 60,000 years ago, Simon's Genome Diversity Project stated that the San Pygmies diverged from Yorubas 87,000 years ago, while Mbuti Pygmies diverged about 56,000 years ago. Yoruba defines the L group. As new migrants from Yorubaland set out once again to colonize the world through Ethiopia into Arabia in what is known as the Great Coastal Migration, as Africans spread to create Sumna, Elam, IVC, and southern China civilizations.
Culture is very important in transformation. We know today that culture is a principal factor in development. And when it comes to culture being the principal aspect, driver of development, we think ultimately about philosophy as the core of culture. I am more interested in the restricted area, the area that some people will call it the Niger Congo, but because I want to focus principally on Nigeria, I will use the term the Kwa Benue, the huge commonalities that we have in this area. And so we are therefore speaking of the Edo and the Efik, the Bibio, Idoma, Igala, Igbo, Ijo, Isoko, Isekiri, Jukun, Tiv, Urobo, Yoruba, and other groups within this area. Now, to understand this, I will go to our traditional way of looking at genetics. And I'll use the Igbo system because I'm fundamentally Igbo speaking. And I will try from here to see how we can understand the knowledge system of the traditional society. Because if we can understand the knowledge system of the traditional society and be able to synthesize it in a sense, we'll then be able to make our fusion a very necessary fusion of our culture and what we are experiencing globally. And for this, you need about 3 native doctors called Dibia, Babalawo for the Yoruba, or 5 or 7. and you must have a majority of these doctors having agreement. I want to say that these doctors were the equivalent of the modern day philosophers in the traditional society. I also want to say that if you want to understand our traditional world, you must understand these doctors and the way they generated applied and used thought. And what guides it is fundamentally electromagnetism. It is a line and parts of electromagnetic composition. And it therefore shows that the traditional doctors understood in a very significant way the rules that determine electromagnetism and the electromagnetic composition of life and how this influences genetic transfer. So this leads to the question of how the knowledge system works. Okay? However, before we go further, let us first look at the similarity between Alpha, Ifa, and related system. The system relies on 8 shells, which can appear as concave or convex, thus giving 16 sides, tied into 2 strings of 4 shells, connected or tied together, which is thus open to a total of 256 possibilities or geometric figures, as some will say, in each of the true. Each possibility or geometric figure is a symbol with a name and a complex of meaning. We see the similarity of these names, symbols, or meanings. For example, this is the Igbo and the Yoruba. There are other I'm aware of the relationship with this in the Kala language, in the Idoma language, and in other language, in the Edo language, in Robo language. You will see fundamental similarities. Among the Igbo, this is the rundown that you can get using this. Particularly, I used the Yoruba form of hierarchy and compared it to the Igbo form of hierarchy. And what you get here is a huge similarity. The similarities are highlighted in red, as you can see here. The close similarities are highlighted in blue. The ones that are really divergent are in black. Now you can see it should be very obvious. If you come from the bottom, you will see Ofu and Ofu, Ose and Ose, Otunuba and Otunubo, Aka and Eka, Ete and Irete, Otule and Itura, Ora and Osa, Okala and Obala and Obara. These things are hugely similar. Now, even the ones that are in blue also suggest huge linguistic similarities. And it means that this language system, the commonality was even probably developed much older. What it then means, and before I say the next thing, you have this similarity among the Idoma, the Igala, the Robo. This system shows these huge similarities. Therefore, we can simply tell ourselves that in the past, these were one people, and gradually dialectical differences came in, and gradually you had different languages. Not really different languages, but different emphases and different ways of speaking, so that we can safely say that you are talking about one people. Let me also point out that Europeans tell us that the Yoruba Ifa system probably came from the Arabic Ramil because of the fact that they make marks on the sand. But from what we can see here, this is cast into huge doubt because Ramil could not have come at a stage when these languages were all together, as a group. Therefore, it's obvious that this was, to me, as far as I can see, this was a system that was developed by the indigenous African peoples.
Original Africans devised the first knowledge database wrongly equated as a religion, known as the African Information Retrieval System, IFA, IHA. Afa. It's based on a binary system divided into 16 divisions that would be further divided. Despite the later language divergence accentuated by foreign colonists in their ploy to divide and rule, African language and culture are basically the same.
Prince Justice Faluyi explained.
You made a study called the Human Genome Project for 10-15 years, headed by Mr. Collins. Now, when that study was going on, the Christian scientists all rose up and said the identity of the oldest DNA should not be released. And when they finished that program, we found a new project. We found Tony Blair and Bush saying that they should not release the DNA, what is the oldest DNA, that will shape mainstream beliefs. That's that the oldest DNA and the way they form shows you and follows what linguists have always said, that all Africans diverged out of Nigeria from the eastern border. Nigeria is the Bantu homeland, according to them. Now when you say Bantu, you're talking of East and Southern Africa. Now, to me, and I mean, look at it, there are only two groups in Africa. You have original Africans and you have Afro-Asians. Afro-Asians are those who have been mixed either in culture or in blood. Now, the meteorite 66,000 years ago was what killed dinosaurs and brought new life. And it was from the most fertile point on Earth that we started growing. And this did not only happen in 66 years, because about 70,000 years ago we also had a problem where we had total aridity. And the only places that human beings survived was down here in southern Nigeria and in the caves of Russia. But the Western academia has concentrated on East Africa, that we all come from East Africa. But I mean, if you look at it, you understand that what were they eating? How did they evolve? What is the society? What culture do they have? Now, when you look at it, Yoruba is the largest original African group, followed by Igbos. And you can see that we're all related. As Yorubas diverged into Igala, Igala diverged into Igbo and Idoma, and that's how we spread out. Now, we have evidence which had already been provided by linguists over 20,000 years ago, but archaeologists say, oh, where are the skeletons? One main problem we have in West Africa is that we have a very, our soil is very acidic. So there is no way that you will have skeletons that will last for, for 3-4 million years. The only reason why they find skeletons in East Africa or recently in Morocco is because they're dry. If you put anything there, you will find them in a million years. But here, if you leave a dead body here, the bones and everything will totally disintegrate. So I've always argued that archaeology is not a uniform tool to decide where or who is, who is older. The two most important things, the two greatest evidence that we have is linguistics and our blood, which they have now analyzed with DNA. But that study, which is the Siemens Genomic Project, they specifically said that Yorubas and the San, the Pygmies, who are the oldest, diverged 87,000 years ago. Now the next was the Mbuti, who are also Pygmies, and they again diverged from Yoruba 56 or about 50 something years. Now, how could two sets of pygmies diverge from Yoruba? Shouldn't, let's assume that Yoruba and the San, diverged. The next set of pygmies should come from the San, not from Yoruba. In Nigeria, we have the largest amount of those you call Niger-Congo group, who I call original Africans. We have about 500 out of the 2,240 original African groups in Africa. About 517 are recorded in Nigeria. Now, they are all in the south and middle belts. But one thing is, we have not been able to unify or to understand that these original Africans come from the same cultural background, the same cultural sphere. That, you have the Yorubas, who are the largest, followed by the Igbos. And we all, we speak a dialect of a single mother language. A mother tongue. And how do you say this? Because the most important cultural identity of Yorubas is Ifa. It evolved about some would say 6, some would say 7,000 years ago. The same thing with Igala, the same thing with Jukun, and you realize that we have the same, we share the same cultural platform. In the United, Harvard there was a study and they call it the African Information Retrieval System. We call it IFA, Igbos call it AFA, Benin call it IHA. We always have this argument, it originated in Yoruba land, it originated in Benin. But that's not the point of where it originated. The point is that our culture, the underlying foundation of our culture is the same. And it's not only the culture, because as you go on, and even where we are now, when you look at our political, our cultural aspiration of original Africans is the same, and it's quite different from what I would call Afro-Asians. Because the Afro-Asians, namely when you talk of the Fulani or the Hausas who came in, they came on this platform and they believe that we are backward, we are pagan, our systems are barbaric. Now, unfortunately, we have not been able to intellectualize and articulate our platform as like, no, our platform is not backward. We have a system based on 16 by 16, which comes to 256. Now, this is a system that was created 7,000 years ago. But the latest technology in the world, the computer system, is based on that same 256 pulses. So I don't know how we get off when you say Yoruba culture, Igala culture is backward. I think one of the main reasons is that because we have not come together to defend that culture, it affects us in everything. It affects our work ethic, it affects our politics, it affects everything. Now, we have got, we've got to this stage where everybody is like, what is happening in Nigeria? How are we going to get ourselves? I will say this: if we do not unite our community, if we don't understand that, number one, we have the oldest DNA, that all original Africans came from one source. Once the Igala crossed the ocean, the river Niger, you have Igbo, then you have Idoma, then you have Jukun. The Jukun are the ones who spread up to the Middle Belt and the Idoma to form those we have today. And when you look at Southern Cardinal, the Southern Cardinal languages are the same branch of languages, and that Middle Belt all the way down to Jukun. Now, we went up, I say the specific place, if you want to see where human beings originated, is that forest between Lagos, Benin, and Ife at the top. Because when you look at Ife does not have any town, straight to the sea. So it was that forest that we evolved. And we now spread out. Now people initially said, oh, there was no way humanity and civilization would ever have evolved in the forest. What would they eat? So we had this thing for a very long time called the wild yam question. But in 2013, there was this study from Kyoto University which proved that the pygmies picked wild yams, and it was enough to survive in the forest without anything apart from those yams. Because as you eat yams and you throw them away, it grows. And every patch that the pygmies go through, because once they go through the rainforest, they shake the forest. So light hits ground. Now wherever where we've now they say if you want to become rich, you have any lower grade. You realize that it was not the any, it is not really the math, but wherever you move into, where pygmies have moved into, you have a bounty for 35 years. Now, the European idea of civilization is, when we first shot this, when we forced other human beings and animals to do agriculture, that's when civilization. No, civilization started here, not out of force, not out of war against humanity or the environment, but we evolved a natural philosophy. And that natural philosophy still stays with us, because you won't, most of us are settled farmers. We have our own, we don't believe that our God will tell you that if you take some people's land, He has provided enough for us. Unfortunately now, we have had those who have come in later, who are now Afro-Asians, either colonized, because the Afro-Asians on the other, while all original Africans came from one source, all Afro-Asians are victims of different cultural imperialism over time. We had the first people to be, to fall to cultural imperialism was Kanuri. Then you had the Hausas, then you had the Fulani. And they believe with their ideology and their cultural platform that they're superior. So you hear, they are pagans, they are unbelievers, they are backward. But you see, the only way we're going to change this trajectory is when the largest original African group unites and calls and moves with the second largest, the third largest, and come together and defend that culture. Now look, most of us will probably have heard Ejogbe, but the first day I read Ejogbe and I was like, this is morality. This is not some spiritual cookie-dough. We sat down and we evolved this culture. And until we understand that, because, people will say culture is the way we do things. Politics is how we do things. And economics is how we achieve things. So if you get your culture wrong, you will definitely get your politics and your economics wrong. We need to understand the politics that they do not want us to have that unity. You wonder that why? But you see, with Yoruba, Igbo, Igala, South, if South and Middle Belt unite, they could change Nigeria, they could change Africa, and they could change Africa. And until that unification happens, we've heard, recently where we have the main force, where, realize that, if you read it, you realize that Yorubas want the same thing, Igbos want the same thing. None of these original Africans want to dominate anybody. People will say, we didn't attack. Yorubas had no reason to go and invade any country. We had our yam, we had everything. The same thing with Igbos. And this is why you realize that as of now, everybody's like, we just want our self-determination. We just want the control of our land. That's all we want.
Oni had this to say.
It's about time for us to unite and be one and speak with one voice, especially we, the Aborigines. We have a lot of similarity in our culture, in our heritage, and in our tradition. Let us put supremacy aside. We have common ancestral background. We have common ancestors. It is very evident. United we stand, divided we fall. Everything is there for us to see. You can hear from the last speaker. Let us all come together for the sake of unity of the generation yet unborn. We cannot continue like this. It's about time for all of us to see ourselves as brothers and sisters. You can imagine the convergence in this room. We can easily manage ourselves, despite the fact that we're very complex people. That's the way God created all of us. But if we speak with one voice and protect one another across board, the generation yet unborn will be very happy that some of our ancestors, they came and they fought for them. We can't continue to be divided. We are killing ourselves. We are killing ourselves. Enough is enough. Let us look inward to take our region primarily and the country as a whole to another level. It is very important to us for us to know all this. It is very critical for us to know our history. If we don't know our history, if we don't know our heritage, we're deceiving ourselves. There is no nation in the world that has grown without the heritage, the culture and tradition of that nation. Look at Japan. They did not jettison their heritage. Look at China. Look at India. Even the United States of America, that they converged. They picked a particular heritage and tradition, which is their diversity. Even look at the entire European countries. If you look at every European country, you will see a cross sign in all their flags. Every European country. They believe so much in those their core heritage. What are we standing for? What are we coming together to stand for? Are we going to continue to divide ourselves? It does not pay any of us. On this final note, remember three things. Number one, united we stand, divided we fall. Number two, united we stand, divided we fall. Number three, united we stand, divided we fall. God bless you.
This is the best thing that we're doing now to promote culture, promote homogeneity, to try as much as possible to say that we've come of age and that we can do things for ourselves. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be part of this epoch-making occasion. The impression that our people are taking their own, the bull by the horn. We are now looking back to fight. We are now taking our own destiny in our hands, trying to find our roots, trying to find our origin, and I think that's the best thing that we can do. Like my friend Justice said here, nobody can say or talk about your history better than yourself.
This conference is very, very vital for the survival of the black man. It should be held regularly. This is the beginning of the beginning for we as a black people. The colonialists came after making journeys to take the best of the land, all the materials and many human beings. We took to the new land to cultivate and exploit for them. So we have remained divided since that time. If not for some leaders, traditional leaders, with some sense of brotherhood, we came, saw our land, gave us intoxicants and very dangerous things, exploding firearms to kill our brothers and subdue them to slavery. This has happened. It lose value. A very smart white man has gone to steal our alphabets, steal our calculations and so on, and turn into something that is a money-making machine. Today there is computer everywhere. Computer is managing their space, space. Computer is here, computer is there. Yet the origin came from the black man. We have remained divided, but we thank God for the fact that one of us, this from the glorious civilization, was able to point this thing out. We should retrace our steps. It's better late than never. The black man has suffered. You know that when the other speaker, Justice, was speaking, he spoke eloquently about all that we need to talk about the black man. In my place, legal land, we have big wings. Nobody will know. We have big wings in the local government. There is a set of people like that. They live in the forest. They have their markets, but they speak together. In their goals, I'm actually something that they just carrying the head forward, or like I want that we throw to the back. Nobody has remembered that there was a time some of our people were like them, who started changing the next time. And they speak the same language. They do the same thing. It's in every group here, and I'm sure there are people in Igbo land. You have a Yoruba land. Why not be portrayed like that here and there? if we come together, not only come together for us, it is for us to survive. Look at it. We have not gone to war because of food. We have not gone to war because of envy. We went to war because of instigation from an outsider. But all this must stop. This conference is very, very vital for the survival of the black man. It should be held regularly because our salvation lies in this conference, because our eyes are getting open every day. This is the beginning. In fact, I am so elated that I want this to be repeated 2 times annually.
Chief Nya John Nwodo, President Ohaneze, the Apex Igbo socio-political group.
As an individual, thinking about my Igbo-ness and its relationship with the rest of the people here, I don't need to go too far. If I start with the Yorubas, I know that their Ifa is called Afa in Igbo. Why should there be such a linguistic similarity? I know that in Ife, there is a quarter which was inhabited by Igbos in pre-colonial times, in medieval times. Why should they have such a relationship? Why should Igbos be indigenous in Ife, the cradle of Yoruba civilization? I know that this Lagos, its dynasty, is rooted associated with the Benin Kingdom. Why? If they are not the same people, why should this be a Yoruba land territory but ruled by Benin people, who have now assumed the Yoruba connection? I was having a tete-a-tete with the Ataobiga before this started. And you know, I said to him, do you know that we and your people in Benue and Kogi have a lot of similarities? For instance, in Osuka, where I come from, we have a masquerade called Akatakpa. They have the same masquerade in Idoa. It's called Akatakpa, no change of name. Now, the salutation of the Ataobiga is Agabaedo. In Osuka, where I come, when our biggest masquerade comes out, it is called Agabaedo. No change whatsoever. What this goes to show is that we are the same people who moved to various lands in order to attracted by either sea or pastures or agriculture or women or trade or whatever. But colonial rule has destroyed our robbery. Post-colonial military rule have colonized us and bastardized our origin. More so, the constitution that has been imposed on us as people of Nigeria, a constitution which falsely declares in its opening appellation, we the people of Nigeria. When we the people of Nigeria never voted on that constitution, has completely disfigured our imagination. For me, I only sing song, which if I don't realize before I die, I know I have died a very bad death, is the restructuring of the Federation. This symposium has opened our eyes. It has deepened our knowledge of our commonalities, especially of our common origins, and the necessity to preserve our original identities. Please, Your Eminence, can we promote this more? I invite you to Enugu to give this kind of lecture to our people. And I'm sure that somebody will invite us to the middle of that.
He's highly motivated. He's going to bring us good peace, link us tighter together, and bring in peace to our home. Any person or persons that want peace, his home front must be the launching base. And I'm so happy for what you have done. What you did in Canada speaks volume. We are asking for more.
Pa Ayo Adebanjo, the veteran politician among the team that got Nigeria's independence.
There are so many of you here. I say cabbage to all of you. Cabbage is the common language of all of us. Who has been thinking or organizing or wishing for the unity of this country will be very happy to be here today. Our cabbage in the audience has always been the mover since he came into the throne as the predecessor to ensure that we Nigerians from all walks of life we live in peace together. The question of restructuring that has been misinterpreted by many who don't want us to be united say, oh, restructuring, oh, you want to separate Nigeria. And I have made it clear that whoever opposes restructuring is the #1 enemy of Nigeria. Since the military came in 1966 and forcibly changed our constitution and made their own constitution to suit them, forgetting the constitution of our founding fathers who were conscious of our diversity and agreed since 1954 that we should stay together on agreed terms and respecting the ethnic, language, and culture of each area. We shall trade in peace. Since then, what has been happening? With the people who have organized this conference, we should thank them to say what they have been thinking, what they have been doing, theoretically, taking the trouble of research, intellect, to support what we have been talking about. That no, don't go too far. There are so many things that bind us together if you can understand ourselves. So that's the message you do. And like the Atran said, this one should continue. It's the beginning of the good things to come. And with Jaja here supporting us, and our family is there, and the other believe there, Nigeria is one.
I just want to say very briefly that we are witnessing the true beginning of our history today. Colonial powers came, disregarded our heritages, and structured our country in the way that was good for their own benefits. And we have made the mistake of surrendering. Rather than looking at our real feelings, deep feelings in our own hearts. We knew what was good for us, but for some reason we were too scared to express what was good for us. We were ready to be led this direction or that direction. And that's why we are where we are. That's why we are what we are today. But we are starting a new history. The real history of the Yoruba people, of the Igbo people, of the Ijaw people, of the Ibibio people, of the Ghana people, of the Nope people, the Ebira people, the Tiv people, who constitute from all the information we have been having from serious studies since the middle of the last century, one people in the world.
archaeologists started, did research. Students of historical linguistics did research. Students of ethnology, which is the study of ethnic groups, did research. Students of various kinds of sciences did research, all of which is in our possession. We are in possession of it all. And then historians from about the 1950s, under people like Kenneth Dike and Ade Ajayi, began to put it together. All the works of the archaeologists, the historical linguists, the ethno-linguists, the ethnologists, the philosophers, and so on, began to put it together to tell a coherent story. The coherent story is there, but we have been guided to ignore them. The coherent story is simply this: that in the Benue Valley and the Niger Valley, in very ancient times, as far back as 38,000 BC, that's 40,000 years ago, that their immediate brothers, the Igbo, occupy territory east of the Niger. Over time, we have evidence, archaeological, anthropological, linguistic information, everything. That's what we historians do. We look at every one of these things and we put it together into a coherent story. A lot to much of what is now Black Africa. There are Yoruba people who claim origin from Ife in every country in West Africa, almost every, all the way to Mali in the north, all the way to what is now the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, northeastwards, the Chad Valley. Further beyond that, what is now Sudan and South Sudan, the province known as Abyei in South Sudan and Sudan, between the two, is a Yoruba people, a Yoruba speaking people. The day of the beginning of our proper history. And we must push this forward and forward and forward. We must teach it to our children at home. We must teach it to our children in their elementary schools and secondary schools. We must establish it as a major source, a major course of study in every one of our universities. We must proclaim it on the rooftops and let the world know that the black people, the original black people from whom all the other black peoples of the African continent originated, have discovered themselves at last and are ready to defend their interests and their civilizations and their cultures together, working together. Kabisi, I repeat what our father, they already said, united we stand, divided we fall. I remove the second half. I say simply, Kabiyesi, forgive me for amending this. United we stand. Thank you very much.
getting a copy of the invitation, said that he would love to be here in person, but due to other exigencies of rulership, he was unable to make it, but decided that a delegation from his chiefdom must be here. The delegation must be here, not because of any other thing, but because of the relevance of the subject matter. Coming from the cradle of the well-known Nog civilization. The belief is that a topic of this nature, discovering our origins as Africans, definitely, people of the Nog civilization, we could see from the card, were integrated within the Middle Belt folklore. But we believed that we needed to come here and share with people of similar civilizations in the world, just like we do have. Part of the belief is that a nation's culture resides in the heart and the soul of its people. Further understanding of it is that a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin and culture is like a tree without roots. For us, we know we have roots. For us, we know we have history which is well documented. In our own case, the documentation that we have so far is as far back as about 500 BC through archaeological finding. But then this new scientific discovery, we got interested in it because we know from that scientific finding the discovery might have been, the actual issues might be much more than the 500 BC that is being indicated in the books as of today.
When I got this invitation, I was so amazed that something like this is going on in Nigeria. It's a very fantastic idea for whoever brings on this idea. It is right that unity may be difficult, but the ability for us to know the patterns which we can bring in unity is always difficult. But I must say, without missing words, that today has made me to realize that unity just began in this our Africa.
The job of Opobo, the representative of Omanoba, and the activist, Father in Afenifere, a preacher. It's not a question per se. I am from the Ifa family, part of the International Council for Ifa Religion. We are ably represented here. Through Ifa, there is never any of the Odu Ifa that talked about we being Yoruba. My only, I want us to denounce that appellation. Today, we are not Yorubas. We are Omoduabi of Oodua. Thank you very much.
We should be thinking of the way forward. And the way forward is the realization of real unity, which should commence by putting in place or the installation of committees. For instance, the committee for the study of the African education, for instance, the committee for the study of the African religion, for instance, the committee for the study of the African philosophy, the African politics, for instance. Because if we do not do this, today I see us not beginning a realization of the African dream, which should begin from today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Please hand over the mic.
I stand before all of us today, a darkened black man, proud to be a black man. I am from the Middle Belt region of Nigeria, and I strongly believe, after hearing and listening to these excellent intellectuals, that we share the same culture truly. I wrote a book recently, and some of the pictures in the book, which contain terracotta pictures, are similar to some of the heads I see in the Ife civilization. And I feel Yoruba-ish, even though I am Ham. I stand before you today because a lot of times that conferences and symposia like this have been held in the past. This has affected this generation of Nigerians who know very little about their cultures, about values and norms that make their parents even more. Youth are walking across this country knowing not where they go. And I ask this question, but the sweetest thing for any humanity: where do we go after today? Where do we go after tomorrow? When we leave this place, what happens to these politicians to mesmerize us with their grammar again after this sitting? Do we go on our knees and bow to the politicians rather than giving them instructions on how to lead our country aright? What do we do to these speeches today?
Is that they and the institution they stands for thousands of years. This is not a 4-year election cycle. And this is why when everything has gone wrong, we have had to go back to our royal fathers and for them to give us a long-term approach. Not a short-term approach, and like I said, when you know your family, you're much stronger. I mean, your Bible will say, now, if we're only Yorubas, we need all our goods, we need all our family, original Africans, undiluted culture from, no undiluted culture from outside. Naturalists that evolved. We're not, you understand? And that's where we have to go to. And we have to be proud of ourselves. We have to push our culture. And because it all starts, they say each one teach one, right? You have to teach your, when anybody says, oh, black people, or that, you have to put them right. And that's how it starts. Not only from our royal fathers, but from each and every one of us. We need to pass the message that, look, we are this, and we have hope. Like I say, I have a dream of, from Calabar to Port Harcourt to Lagos, all the way down to Egypt, to be the most highly powered economy. If not because of our brief reversal, I believe that Nigeria would surpass the United States economy by 2050. But with what we've had over the last few years, we have been on the reverse. But I believe that if we come together, get our culture right, like I said, culture is economics, is politics. Culture is the way you do things, politics is how you organize, and economics is how you achieve those things. Once you have the culture, everything else will flow. Thank
you. Alafia, Kabiesi, respect due. First of all, I have something to say. I am a representative of the disunity that has come
as a result of us not seeing ourselves as one people. I am an African man born in America. I've come back because we study Ifa, we're studying Ifa with the chief, and coming back to learn more about our culture. When I touched down, people said, oh my God, you're a Yoruba man, you're an Igbo man, you're a Nigerian man. I was born in San Diego, California. But what I'm saying to you is, it has happened before. Do you understand me? And it will happen again if we do not come together. That's number one. Also, I am a college professor at Cal State University Dominguez Hills. This is rather ironic because I teach Africana Studies and I'm currently teaching on this issue. My name is Professor Jasani Fakolade. I wanted to inquire about a couple of things with regards to this discussion.
Sorry, can you come again with your name?
Fakolade.
What?
Fakolade.
Fakolade. Round of applause for you, please.
Okay. All right, so in terms of that, I wanted to inquire about the discussion of the earliest human remains. For my research, I've located human remains in at least 4 locations on the continent of Africa in terms of fossilized human bone. That would be Afar Triangle in Ethiopia, also Tanzania, Oduber Gorge, Kenya, as well as South Africa. These yielded bones of Australopithecus afarensis, africanus, and so on and so forth. These bones dating back at least 4 million years old. I asked the question, first of all, in terms of that, how does that relate to this new information? And also, relating to that information, I remember the elder talking about acid in the soil of West Africa, which was eliminating human fossilized bones in this region. So I wanted to get more information about that. And also, if we could elaborate much more on the Nox civilization, which dates back at least 500 BC, because I think that that too is a key in understanding this so-called new information that we're doing, because as I said before, I'm taking this information back when I get back to America and I'm immediately implementing it, okay? So if we can elaborate on that, those two things, and last but not least, after all this, what now? What now? What are we gonna do now? Okay, we have to have the next thing. What is the plan? What do you want us to do? What do you want me to do as a college professor, as an African man born in America? What is my charge? Do you understand what I'm saying? Much respect.
Is not a uniform to test where we are from. The places you have mentioned are in Ethiopia and in Tanzania. People don't actually live in those valleys because they're so dry. When you're going to in Ethiopia, for example, the only place people live is actually in the highlands, not in those valleys. Now, that's one that the soil here does not allow, and apart from the soil not allowing our skeletons to survive, there's actually been no investment or studies to conduct, you understand, in West Africa, yes. Majority of what we found in West Africa was by accident. And there was a study in 2002 by Brunei where they got a skeleton in charge called Tumai. And it was there, if you go and check it, that they said that they have, archaeologists have not really studied West Africa. 3 months ago, or about 4 months ago, they discovered something in Morocco. But you see, that is dead bodies. The blood that flows in you and your language tells history far more better than archaeology. You understand? So when we now have DNA evidence and we have linguistics, and we have other things, those are better tools to find out our origin and how we are related. Your skeletons cannot tell you that Yoruba is related to Igala and that Igala is related to Igbo. It should just tell you that the dead body died here some time ago. So that's the answer to your archaeological questions. Thanks.
I come of Igala. It's a privilege. Jaja of Opobo, first time of sighting the Jaja. I congratulate myself. I am calling you one by one. The reason being that there is a job for you, SARS. Bajolaye is 90 years old this year. And I believe he will see the freedom that he's been fighting for since 1951 before he go and see Babawolowo. Now, this cultural events bring something deep, which our elder Maurice for us. We are 70% in Nigeria. We are the Aborigine. We can hold the political power, the economic power, everything power to liberate us. To continue from here, the others, our leaders, talk to your people that independence has come. We have now found ourselves. We are brothers. Igbo cannot fight Yoruba anymore. The Igala is a Yoruba, is an Igala. The Jaja of Opobo is a brother to the Oni of Ife. So why are three of you, or all of you, not combining together as 70% and rule Nigeria and preserve this culture for the Americans who want to see their homeland as this is where they are born, and so that they can be respected in America? My leaders, this is my comment. Thank you, Justice Faloye. Thank you very much.
Particularly, I was very interested in what Professor said in terms of relating our spiritual science or spiritual culture base across all the peoples that inhabit the West African coastline, the Bantu-speaking people. But there is one issue for me if we are really and truly going to unite and actually jettison the imperialistic influence in our land. And that is our spiritual culture must be on our national psyche. It cannot be Christianity and Islam. I would like to refer you to the Haiti Revolution of 1792. The only time that the slaves successfully revolted against imperialism. That particular revolution was preceded by a 7-day Ogun celebration. And it was because our people in slavery were able to coalesce their spiritual power base. They defeated 3 imperialist powers. For us to thrive in this continent as black people, we need to jettison the influence of imperialism. Unfortunately, Christianity and Islam are the factors standing in our way. Thank you.
Following new scientific evidence presented by Prince Justice Faloye in his books and documentary, His Imperial Majesty, the Ooni of Ife, Oba Adeyeye Ogunwusi Ojaja II, the Afenifere, and other stakeholders supported the call for a conference and other means to present the information to the public. On further consultation, paramount rulers of all the major original African groups supported the idea of presenting and disseminating our true cultural origins and linkages. The support of the Genetic Society of Nigeria was sought to disseminate the latest genetic evidence and work towards providing a complete genetic map of Nigeria. There is a need to increase the collective intelligence of original and indigenous Africans with regard to their true origins and collective aspirations. Basically, there are only two main ethno-linguistic groups across Nigeria and Africa as a whole. Original Africans, referred to as the Niger-Congo linguistic family, who all originated from the same source, and Afro-Asians, who are products of various Asiatic cultural imperialism. Original Africans constitute a 70% majority of Nigerian and African populations. Yorubas and Igbos are the two largest original African groups in Africa, and they share the same cultural foundations with all other ethnic groups in southern and central Nigeria, as well as from the Gambia to South Africa. The articulation of the cultural identity and interrelationships of original Africans is necessary to improve cultural pride, work ethic, and the basis for political unity. For too long, original African economic and political progress have been arrested with divide and rule tactics. It is believed that before the black race can rise, original Africans at its core must unite on a common platform, achieved preferably through a think tank that will dictate public discourse and opinion, as well as public policy through direct means like conferences and symposia, as well as indirect means like sweepstakes and quizzes. A presentation of the tripartite collaboration of Adulawo Media, the House of Oduduwa, and the Genetics Society of Nigeria. The journey of discovery continues. African, know thyself.
Nigeria,